Okay, so my 9-core M4 iPad Pro has arrived. So the first thing that I'm going to do is do an unboxing and just my very initial thoughts, like, how does it feel immediately after I've kind of like, switched it on and installed a couple of apps and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong, this ain't going to be some big mad highfalutin unboxing and stuff like that. And let's face it, there's going to be a billion of them today on YouTube. However, I'm taking this opportunity just to let people who subscribe to my channel know that now that I've got it, I will be doing a whole bunch of videos about it. So things like, how to connect it to like monitors and TVs, testing various types of docks with it. Let's see, Thunderbolt SSDs, all kinds of crazy stuff. So basically, keep an eye out on the channel for that stuff. Anywho, let me get into this unboxing, then I'll come back at the end and give you my initial thoughts on it. Okay, so to start off with then, I'm just going to do a quick scoot around the box for anybody out there who is into boxes. And this is the front of the box with this design on it, which I haven't got a clue what that is, although somebody at Apple's probably been paid a ton of money to come up with whatever that's supposed to be. And this is one of the long edges of the box here, and in the middle it just says iPad Pro. Now, this does look suspiciously thin, doesn't it? And I think us lot in Europe know why that is, and I will confirm that once I open the box. And the other long edge is exactly the same, and this just says iPad Pro in the middle as well. Now, moving to the top edge of the box, and in the middle of it, as we can see, is a nice little discreet Apple logo, just as there is on the bottom edge of the box. And then finally onto the back of the box. Now, I'm not entirely sure how readable this writing's going to be here because it is really small. However, in post or when I do the edits, if it is kind of readable, I will blow into it, right? And then just leave it on the screen for a couple of seconds right now. So if there's anything on there, just kind of pause the video and read through it if there's anything interesting, and then just carry on at your own leisure. But nonetheless, we should be able to see up here, it says 256 gigabytes, iPad Pro 11-inch M4, and it's the Wi-Fi model. So basically, I have got the cheapest possible one you can get, and this still cost $1,000. And importantly, this has only got 9 cores. Anyways, what I'm going to do is just get into the box. So let me get that strip off the top there, and then let me get that strip off the bottom. Let me just flip that over and let me just get into this. Hold on. There we go. Typical of the iPads, they come in these nice little kind of like tissue wrappers or whatever they are. Although I wouldn't recommend blowing your nose on them or using them to wipe your bottom or anything when you go to the toilet, because that would really chaff. Anyway, let me just get that out the way, because what we really need to find out here is whether or not we get a power brick, and no, we don't. So inside the box, we've got like, our usual stuff here to do with manuals and all the rest of it. And obviously this year round, Apple, in their attempt to be more eco-friendly, have stopped including things like stickers and stuff like that, which I think is a great move. Also, we have got a black USB-C to USB-C cable there for charging, and I believe that should also do data as well. Let me get that out the way. So yes, unfortunately, we don't get the power brick in Europe. Now, before you guys in North America start laughing at us and thinking, look at those guys, they don't get the power brick anymore. Well, do you know what? At least with our iPhones and such, and soon with the iPad Pros, we're going to be able to sideload apps and you guys can't. Anyway, moving on before I upset too many people. So there's the iPad there. Let me just whiz that little papery bit off. Okay. Oh, I like that. Okay, right. Immediately, I've got to say, because obviously I've got the black one here. Now, this black one looks gorgeous. What it is, sometimes when you see these things in photos or on videos, they don't always translate with the color and stuff. This looks fantastic. However, and as other people have already mentioned, let's see. Yes, this is a fingerprint magnet. Whoa. Okay, so that's going to be terrible for fingerprints. However, I always have my iPads and stuff in cases and what have you, so that won't really bother me. But yeah, that's terrible. Look at that. In fact, look at that. Can we? I don't know if we're going to be able to see this. The screen is an absolute mess, but that would be a mess anyway. But anyway, there you go. I've got the black one there. Now, as we can see here as well, there is a difference. We now lose a camera this year, so we've just got the standard camera. The ultra-wide's gone. We've still got LiDAR and the other sensor and stuff, or whatever the other sensor's for. I don't know just yet. There's also a microphone in there and the light. And just a quick run now around the edges of the iPad here, and hopefully I've got some meaningful focus on the go. Now, for my particular use of iPads, I use them in landscape orientation. So for me personally, this would be the top edge. Now, that being the case, what we've got here are the up and down buttons for the volume. What we've got there is the charging strip, or the wireless charging strip, if you're using any of the pencils. Or I think maybe you can only actually use the one pencil now, can't you, with the M4s? I'll have to double check that. And then what we've got here is actually a microphone on this top edge. And then looking at the opposite side here, which will be the bottom edge, as you can see, this is essentially clear, although we do have this little cutout here. It's basically a gap within the alloy, and that's used for the antenna system. In fact, I forgot to mention, if we look at it on the top edge as well, we also have one there where the buttons are for the volume as well. Now, on the top edge, what we've got is a speaker here, and we've got a speaker here, and then right in the middle there we've got another microphone, and then on the edge there we have got our power button. And then finally on the bottom edge here, as we can see, we've got another speaker here and another speaker here, and then what we've got here is a C port. Now, this particular C port, as well as being USB-C compatible, it is actually primarily Thunderbolt. So the good thing about these particular iPads, as it was anyway with the previous M2 and M1s, they are USB-C and Thunderbolt. So basically that's a 40 gigabits per second port. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to get off, log into my iPad, and then put some software on it. Now, that's going to take me a while, but it's not going to take you any time, because I'm just going to cut straight back to me with the iPad with something on it in a second. However, check this out. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but that back there is a complete mess now with all my fingerprints, and it's also got like sweat on it and everything from me picking it up. It's absolutely gross. And then I don't know if we're going to see here, but that screen there on the front, a complete mess. Oh, hopefully we can see that. That's terrible. I really am a mucky little boy. Anyway, I'm going to get off, put some stuff on, but right now, okay, so I've now signed into my iPad. I've also updated iPad OS as well to the latest version, and I've installed a few bits and pieces as well, which I'm going to get onto after I've done this video, because there's certain things I need to find out, you know, just to see exactly what the difference is really between this iPad and my M2 iPad Pro. Anyways, initially, I've got to say, I don't really see a huge difference in the screen here. Now, of course, this is OLED as opposed to, I think, what was it before? It was just a standard IPS panel, I think. But the thing is, yes, it does look good. However, the previous iPads, like the M1s and the M2s, look great anyways. Now, I'm not saying that this is not a better screen. It's just that initially, I just don't see it. And then I've just been playing around as well with Warzone Mobile. I've had a quick couple of games there. I didn't feel any difference on that compared to my M2. In fact, there'll be a video shortly after this one goes up to do with Warzone. So if you're interested in, like, you know, what that's like for gameplay on the M4, check the video out. I mean, it's not that it plays bad or anything. It was already playing well on M2, but there's a couple of functions missing as well with the M4 version, but the game doesn't actually feel any better. I've had a quick dabble with a couple of other things here as well. DaVinci Resolve and Cubasis. That's basically my kind of video editing stuff on the iPad, and also music creation. Again, initially, I'm not feeling anything really that's that different. Then I've got LumaFusion there. I've not tried that yet, but I'm going to hazard a guess that that's probably going to be very similar to me M2 and stuff. Yeah, so initially, yeah, first reactions, I'm a bit like that with it. it's not a huge deal compared to the M2, if I've got to be honest. Anyway, what I'll do, let me just flip the camera over and I'll just like, you know, do a little bit of a talk out to end the video. Okay, so to an end summary then, just to close out this video. Now, as far as my opinion initially, or my first impressions are concerned, I think you'll know where I'm up to as far as the M4 iPad Pro is concerned from what I've just been saying. But if I had to put it in a nutshell, it's not particularly that impressive if you were already on an M2 or an M1. Now, don't get me wrong, there are going to be instances where the processing power of the M4 might actually be noticeable against an M2, possibly more so against an M1, obviously. However, you know, the vast majority of apps out there, even ones which are like, you know, quite powerful apps, I just don't think you're going to see any of these differences that you may think you're going to see. So the bottom line here is, if you've got an M1 or an M2 iPad Pro, and I'll probably do a separate video about this once I've done a bit more testing, but I'd probably recommend that you don't bother looking at this one. Do you know what I mean? Especially if most of your daily tasks are like, you know, just bog standard stuff, unless you've got like, you know, a very specific use case which requires a lot of processing power. Maybe some of the video editing software and stuff like that, design software or music software, then maybe that might be the reason to push up to the M4 from M1 and M2. However, and as I've just stated, I've just had a quick mess with a couple of things there that I'm very familiar with, and they are powerful, you know. So, you know, the video editing stuff on like Resolve, and then the music stuff on Cubase or Cubasis, and yeah, you know, straight away there was no difference, and the gameplay was no different and stuff like that compared to me M2. Now, just as a quick thing here, let me see if I can get this side by side. Okay, let's see. Now, this isn't particularly scientific or anything like that, but on my right here, this is my M1 iPad Pro. And I don't know if you're definitely not going to be able to see that many differences and stuff like that. But between these two, when I've just had a look at them on the table, even I'm looking at them thinking there really isn't much in it, you know, as far as the screen is concerned. This is, and also my M1 here has got a screen protector on it, so that's got an extra layer of glass on top. And even side by side, as I'm looking at them, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, I can tell which one is which, but that's probably because as standard, the M4 is a little bit brighter, maybe. You know, it does look like it pushes highlights a bit more, even on the user interface and what have you. But these like screens on the old M1s, these were never bad, and I think it's the exact same screen, I believe, on the M2. I'll pull that out in a second. I believe they're IPS versus, you know, the OLED there. But again, you know, it's not a huge difference if you're going to see it at all. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're outdoors and like there's a lot of bright light around, the M4 can go a lot brighter, and that's probably where it will really kick in. However, that's probably the only real thing, I think, where people are going to notice it, because it's all well and good saying, well, if you're playing like HDR content, you know, you'll see it. But the thing is, most people do not play HDR content, and for the vast majority of the stuff that you're going to do on an iPad, it's not playing video. Do you know what I mean? You're actually working with inside apps and stuff, and it's not like the apps have got HDR like user interfaces and stuff like that. Now, give us a moment. Okay, so this now on my right hand side, this is the M2 iPad Pro, and once again, you know, just comparing them side by side, I know to you looking at them, there's not going to be a huge difference anyway, because this isn't the best way to judge things either, you know, filming them with a camera and then obviously me sitting like, you know, miles away and stuff. However, you know, from my point of view, and I'm looking at the screens directly, it's the exact same thing. I think obviously the M2's got the same screen as the M1 anyway, so there's going to be no difference between them as far as differences are concerned. But once again, you know, it's going to be really hard, I think, for people to justify that screen on the M4, you know, outside of certain like, you know, small or, you know, very narrow use case scenarios. You know, obviously one of those is going to be playing back content like videos, but as I've just said there, you know, the vast majority of time that you spend on an iPad Pro is not to play videos. I mean, you might be editing videos, fair enough, do you know what I mean? But you're using these things, hopefully for some kind of work and stuff like that, or maybe productivity. It could be doing music, design, all that kind of thing. Now, I could be wrong here, but I don't think there's any elements of the UI which are effectively HDR either, so that kind of thing won't be any different between any of them. Anyway, let me just put this away. So I'm just going to try and flash through as quickly as possible now with regard to the main differences between the M4 iPad Pro and obviously the previous iPad Pros with M1 and M2. So the first thing being the screen technology. Yes, it's great, but as I've just been explaining, it's no big deal as far as I'm concerned, or the deal isn't big enough, I think, for it to have warranted that price hike, if indeed it has been the screen that's kind of like, put a lot of that price hike into the new price. Now, as far as the weight is concerned, yes, it is lighter. However, when I picked it up initially, I didn't feel that it was lighter. I've had to hold another one of me 11 inches in one hand and then this and the other. And yeah, at that point you can kind of feel that it's a bit lighter and stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, although for me it's not been that noticeable. I tell you where it will be noticeable, and that is if you hold your iPad a lot. So you might be walking around with an iPad and stuff. If that's the case, then, as marginal as I might think that difference is within the weight, that's definitely a big plus point for somebody who does walk around with these all day. So you'll definitely notice that. The thinness of it, again, I don't know whether when you first pick it up you actually feel that difference. Again, if you pick up another iPad next to it, you definitely can notice it, or if you can put them side by side, you can eyeball it and see it. But once again, as far as that's concerned, it's not like these iPads were ever thick in the first place, Plus, I also think that there are practical considerations once things start getting too thin, and whether that's going to be the structure or the strength of it, as in, will this bend easier, which I'm definitely not going to test, because at the end of the day, if you want to bend something, you'll bend it, okay? But yeah, as far as the thinness is concerned, I think we may be getting to the point where it might be slightly impractical. I'm not entirely sure on that. Other people can work that one out. Let's see, there's a loss of cameras, there's a loss of microphones. Will we really notice those things? I don't think so. I, for one, didn't use the ultra-wide camera. Maybe other people did, in which case you would definitely notice that as a loss from the other iPads. But in general, it's an iPad Pro. That's it, And whilst it doesn't have, a proper operating system like Mac OS on it, and I'm not going to keep bleating on about it, but whilst it doesn't have that, it is still just the most powerful iPad you can get. It is an iPad, and the problem is with iPads, there's only so much you can do with them, once again, due to restrictions within the operating system, and also the complete lack of proper professional software. I mean, I run DaVinci Resolve on this. However, I only do it for testing, because if I put this up against me Mac, and don't forget, DaVinci Resolve on here is essentially the same DaVinci Resolve that you get on a Mac. It's not like it's a stripped down app version of it, but there's a load of problems with it when you plug it into an external monitor and stuff. It doesn't rescale the UI or anything. Let's see, a lot of the fonts don't scale and stuff like that. There's all kinds of weird problems that you get with it. So in that instance, when we're talking about professional video editing software, the best one on here still doesn't perform anywhere near as well as it does on a Mac. Again, due to restrictions with the operating system. Let's see, there's other stuff in here to do with, say, design stuff that I don't use, that I know other people do, but I can guarantee you that anybody who's doing design stuff or maybe photo editing, they're going to have a much better time with the likes of, the Affinity Suite, or say Photoshop, or some of the other Adobe stuff on a Mac. You don't get the same experience on an iPad. Now, I don't want to keep going round and round with this thing where it's obviously me and my opinions of why we need a better operating system, or at least compatibility with professional software off Mac to be able to go onto the iPads. But the reason why I've just kind of laid into that again is because at the end of the day, it is only an iPad. It's an iPad Pro, which is obviously the most powerful iPad. But if you put this up against the cheapest iPad that you can buy now, which was it the 10th gen, is it? I think that's the lowest one. I'm not too sure. But whichever one it is, they are essentially exactly the same device. However, one of them starts off at, I think, $300 now, or $350. And this one can top out at just around $3,000 when you go for the big one and ramp it all up. But at the end of the day, they are only iPads. So again, it's that thing, you know, how far do you go with an iPad, and how valuable are they really to you if you want to do proper work with them? Now, on that point, I think I'll end it there, because I will start upsetting a lot of people, because there's going to be a bunch of people out there who are going to give me, you know, like very small use case scenarios of particular apps that they use and what they do with a pen and stuff like that. And I'm not denying that people do that type of stuff. However, what I'm saying is that the vast majority of people with iPads don't do that, and obviously the iPad Pro is not the biggest selling iPad out there either. Anyway, I think I'll leave it at that. You know exactly where I'm up to with this. I think it's a fantastic iPad, but it's still only an iPad. Anyways, keep an eye on my channel, because I'll be doing a whole bunch of stuff, testing things, you know, kind of doing little setups for desktop and all that kind of thing. And hopefully we might get some really good news about some like software stuff at WWDC next month as well. Maybe. Anyways, and as ever, there will be links to all kinds of junk in the video description below. If you've liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. A sub to the channel would be absolutely awesome. I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.